Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Sabrina Aulia Rizki, and my student identification number is 250020003. I'm from Universitas PGRI Buana, Surabaya. Today, I would like to present an integrated teaching model called the Inductive Inquiry Creative Geography Learning Model. This model combines 5 models of teaching: learning to learn inductively, scientific inquiry, the Picture Word Inductive Model, concept attainment, and synectics. The main purpose of this model is to help grade 10 students understand geography not only by memorizing information, but also by observing phenomena, developing concepts, investigating problems, and creating impossible solutions. Through this model, students are expected to become active, critical, creative, and independent geographical thinkers. Let us begin by examining why geography education needs to move beyond traditional memorizations. Okay, this slides moving beyond static memorizations. Traditional geography teaching often presents geography as a collection of names, locations, definitions, and isolated facts. For example, students may be asked to memorize the name of rivers, mountains, countries, or climate zones without fully understanding the relationships among them. However, geography is not only about knowing where something is located. True spatial reasoning requires students to understand why a phenomenon occurs in a particular place, how different factors interact, and what effects may develop in the future. Therefore, this model moves students from static memorizations toward a dynamic and layered learning process involving observations, classification, generalizations, scientific investigations, and creative problem solving. The This slides presents the 5 layered learning ecosystem used in the model. The first layer is observations. Based on the picture word inductive model, students begin by observing geographical images and identifying important objects or vocabulary. The second layer is categorizations. Based on concept attainment, students compare example and non-example to determine the characteristic of the concept. The third layer is generalizations. Based on learning to learn inductively, students connect categories, recognize patterns, and develop broader principles. The fourth layer is investigations. Based on scientific inquiry, students formulate hypotheses and test them using data. The final layer is creations. Based on synectics, students use analogies and creative thinking to design solutions to geographical problems. I will now explain each phase, beginning with observation and vocabulary extractions. The first phase uses the picture word inductive model. In this phase, students observe a photograph, map, satellite image, diagram or geographical landscape. They identify visible objects and connect them with appropriate geographical vocabulary. In the example on the slide, students observe a river landscape. From the image, they identify terms such as meander, tributary, and floodplain. These terms are then connected to the broader concepts of fluvial system. The teacher does not begin by presenting complete definitions. Instead, students construct their initial understanding from concrete visual evidence. This phase trains observation skills, geographical vocabulary, and students' ability to interpret visual information. After students identify geographical features, they must determine how those features can be classified. The second phase uses the concept attainment model. Students are presented with example and non-example of a geographical concept. Their task is to compare the information and identify the defining characteristic of the concept. In this example, U-shaped valleys and moraines are classified as evidence of glacial activity. In contrast, V-shaped valleys and deltas are presented as non-example because they are formed through different geographical processes. Students must explain why an example belongs to a particular category and why another example does not. The teacher responds by asking guiding questions rather than immediately providing the answer. This process helps students develop accurate conceptual boundaries, classification skills, and evidence-based reasoning. Once categories have been established, students begin connecting them to form more general geographical principles. The phase 3, structural mapping and generalizations. The third phase is based on learning to learn inductively. Students move from isolated categories towards relationships, patterns, and generalizations. They organize information and examine how one geographical variable influences another. The example on this slide shows relationships among altitude, temperature, precipitations, and biome formation. Students may recognize that increasing altitude generally affects temperature and precipitations, which consequently influence the types of vegetation and ecosystem found in an area. Instead of memorizing a general principle provided by the teacher, the students construct that principle from the data they have examined. This phase develops system thinking, pattern recognitions, inductive reasoning, and the ability to explain geographical relationships. The fourth phase applies the scientific inquiry model. Students formulate a geographical problems and develop a hypothesis that can be tested using spatial data. The example presented here concerns the urban heat island phenomenon. Students may develop the hypothesis that urban heat islands are associated with a lack of vegetation. Then, they, they then collect or examine relevant information such as temperature maps, land use maps, satellite imagery, and vegetation data. Students compare the datasets, identify the patterns, and determine whether the evidence supports their hypothesis. Finally, they formulate a geographical conclusion based on the evidence. This phase develops research skills, data literacy, critical thinking, source evaluations, and scientific attitudes such as accuracy and objectivity. Scientific analysis explain the problem, but students must also be encouraged to imagine new and creative solutions. Phase 5, Creation through Metaphor. The fifth phase uses Synectics, a model that develops creativity through analogy and metaphor. Students are encouraged to view a geographical or environmental problem from a different perspective. For example, a river system may be compared to the human circulatory system. In the river, if the river is blocked by or polluted, the surrounding environment may experience problems similar to a body with blocked blood vessels. Students may also imagine themselves as a drop of water, a tree in an urban area, or a community living in a disaster-prone location. Through these analogies, students develop innovative ideas for water management, sustainable urban planning, disaster mitigation, or environmental restorations. Creativity remains Creativity remains connected to geographical concept and scientific evidence. The relationship among the five models can be summarized through the following pedagogical metrics. This matrix explains the specific contribution of each teaching model. The Picture Word Inductive Model supports observation. Its main stimulus is a visual landscape, and students extract geographical terminology from it. Concept Attainment supports categorizations. Students sort example and non-example to classify geographical features. Inductive learning supports generalizations. Students connect patterns and develop system maps. Scientific inquiry supports investigations. Students test hypotheses using geographical problems, maps, climate information, and other datasets. Finally, synectics support creation. Students use force metaphors and analogies to invent solutions for urban and environmental planning. Therefore, each model has a distinct function, but together they create a continuous learning process. The next slide illustrates how these different functions are integrated into one complete learning blueprint. This slide presents the integration blueprint of the model. The learning process began with concrete data collections. Students observe landscape, identify vocabulary, and classify features using the picture word inductive model and concept attainment. The process then moves toward analytical testing. Through inductive learning and scientific inquiry, students identify relationships, formulate hypotheses, analyze spatial information, and their test idea. Finally, students move toward abstract generation. Through synectics, they transform their scientific understandings into analogies, innovative idea, and possible solution. The model therefore progresses from the concrete to the analytical and then to the creative. All five models are connected rather than implemented as separated classrooms activity. This integrated process ultimately aims to develop students as a spatial thinkers. In conclusion, the inductive inquiry creative geography learning model changed the way students learn geography. Students no longer learn only to identify where geographical objects or phenomena are located. They learn to explain why those phenomena occur in the particular locations, how geographical factors interact, and what future condition or solution may be possible. The planned instructional effects include conceptual understanding, geographical observation, data classification, inductive reasoning, scientific investigations, critical thinking, creative thinking, problem solving, and geographical communications. The nurturing effects include curiosity, independence, collaborations, confidence, scientific attitudes, environmental awareness, respect for different perspectives, and reflective learning. Therefore, this model can help transform Great Then Geography classroom into active spaces for observations, investigations, creativity, and meaningful spatial reasoning. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for listening me. If you want to discuss it more, we can or I will share. Maybe I will share my contact above. Once again, thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.